self-realization. So I say good morning to you once again. And I know that nothing happens by chance, that we are all here by what? Right of consciousness. And as I welcome our viewing audience, you tuned in at this moment because there's something here for you and each and every one of us. And our interfaith community makes all of that possible. Everything that goes out on the airwaves, everything that goes out in print, the energy comes from this nucleus, this fire that spreads its light throughout the planet. And we had such a sense of that this last week in Africa and everywhere we went. We got to Los Angeles. I was taking a lot of clothes to the Nigerian girls. And my luggage was overweight. And she said, you know, the luggage is overweight. And I said, well, I am taking quite a few things to the girls in Nigeria. Can you please speak to someone? So she said, absolutely. And she went over to the supervisor and explained that we were all ministers. We were going to Nigeria and that I was taking things to the Nigerian girls. And she came back and just said, yes, it's absolutely fine. And so I gave her one of our interfaith angels. And she said, this means so much to me. Now, this is the ticket agent. This means so much to me. I want you to know I'm a miracle. That after 4.5 months of my mother's pregnancy, I was born. And I weighed 2 pounds. And I lived and stand before you here today to receive this angel that you have just given me. And I, too, am a miracle. Now, wherever we go on the planet, that this energy, the spiritual ground of being in which we live and move and have our being, is touching lives. And I love the way it works, that we can just take something like a little gold angel and give it to someone, and someone really gets it. They receive it. And you know I've given thousands of angels away throughout all my travels and to our interfaith community. And as we were leaving Nigeria and Port Harcourt, and it's just pretty amazing to leave there. There's just, you go through this immigration officer and this immigration officer and this it just goes on. And each one I gave an angel and, just said, this is, from our ministry and we want to extend it to the beautiful people of Nigeria. And and so Clayton, Dr. Clayton Beaver said, wow, she certainly greased the wheels because we had it pretty easy. Get it finally by the last, the 5th immigration officer, before you get on the plane even. They were coming to me before I got on the plane. A group of them had said, would you bless our angels? So I said, absolutely. And I just they've all put their hands together. I just blessed the angels and said, I know the angels go before you and bless you with ease and grace in your life. And that only good comes to you because only good goes from you. That this is the blessing of the day. So that is the energy as we look at our theme for the month, which is Christ consciousness. As my humanness gives way to the divine, the Christ consciousness arises triumphant and victorious. Every time we take higher ground, every time we stop judging outside of us, every time we're tempted to criticize, and we stop, we go within and we realize, hey, I'm done with that. I don't need to do that. It doesn't mean that we don't like some things that go on. Because our printer went out at the center, which, as you know, is at the Rose of Sharon Sanctuary. So the printer went out. My assistant ordered a new one. It came in. I hired a tech to come in to put it all together. It didn't work. They're on the line for 3 hours to HP. Hewlett Packard. Just put that out there. And they didn't want to send someone out. It went on. And my assistant, she's feisty, and she was very frustrated. She said, I don't like this one bit. I said, just ask for a supervisor. So they get on the line, and they said, we'll send a new printer out. So they send a new printer out. We've got all of these things we must be printing. And the technician comes in, he hooks it up, and guess what? It doesn't work. So she gets on the phone again, And suddenly, from speaking to someone on the phone, they send their own technician from HP out. He then brings, I've already left for Africa, he then brings a third printer, just in case the second printer isn't working. And it was something very simple. It was a cartridge. And what I said is to have our human experience, to feel the frustration of the everyday, that's kind of a normal thing. To discharge the energy and to speak to all these people that you can speak to one person and the next and the next and the next is frustrating. However, when you stay with it, when you stay with the frustration and you stay with what is going on and you're present to it, it's amazing how suddenly someone appears at the door and they just do a few things and all is well again. It takes persistence to be in this way of life. It takes persistence to be in life. It takes persistence every single day to say today is a new day. And that there may be things in our life that we wish we could put behind us. I always say, I'm looking forward to the day I can look, see this as the past. That there are those moments in our lives. But beyond time and space, when we are in that space of spirit, and we are acknowledged that there is a power for good in the universe greater than we are, we really can use it. In the Science of Mind textbook, Dr. Ernest Holmes has made a very interesting statement about Christ consciousness. And if you don't have the Science of Mind textbook, you need to get it, because this is really the ground of being. We always know when we have a speaker that comes that doesn't have a Science of Mind background, because this is the foundation in which our life springs. And I loved it when he says, if we can look upon Jesus from the viewpoint, we shall be able to study his life as a living example. What is more inspiring than to contemplate this consciousness of a man who has the faith to stand in front of a paralyzed man and tell him to get up and walk, and to know very well that he is giving to get up and walk, or to stand in front of the tomb of a dead man and tell him to come forth. Such an example as this is worth something. But of the whole performance, we acknowledge that as his humanness gave way to the divine, the Christ came through him. Jesus, as being unique and different, is not so. For the Bible makes it more than plain that he was a man like we are. And he goes on to say that as his humanness gives way to the divine, the Christ consciousness within him arose triumphant and victorious every time we take higher ground. Every time that we look beyond what's being demonstrated in the immediate and realize there's something else going on. And it's like a test. These little things that come into life, we know how we're doing by how we react to them. When we react less, we think, boy, I have just grown past that one. Thank God. That Christ consciousness within us allows us to see so clearly. Allows us to look through the appearance, the condition, the effect, to the truth of being. And it was very interesting when I was in Africa. They left it open for questions and answers. And one young man said that, I had given an example. And I had given an example that when my mother died in 2002, I'd been here only a few months, and she'd made her transition. And that I went to the spa, and I was sitting in the steam room, and I just began weeping, and I could not stop. And I felt so embarrassed. There's this little old lady sitting across from me, and she sort of reminded me of my mother with the white hair, and she's, kind of frail. And I just started sobbing. And she came over and sat next. We're in towels. You have to visualize all, we're in a steam room. She came over. She sat next to me. She put her arm around me. And she said, "What is it, dear?" And I said, "Well, my mother has just passed away, and I just went into this streak of missing her." And she said, "Let me tell you a story, that when I was a young girl in Poland, an old gypsy came to our door. And my mother let her in. We had very little food. She said she was hungry, and my mother went in and she got her food. And she said that the old gypsy sat down at our very humble table. And she asked to see my mother's hand. And when she looked at my mother's hand, she said, "You need to leave this village within 3 days." And she said my mother knew that ships were going out and they were going to America. And my mother just packed. She listened to the old gypsy, and she packed our bags of what little we had. And we were on the next ship to America. That day, the Nazis came in, and they did away and murdered everyone in the village, all my childhood friends, everyone I loved, everyone that I shared anything with. They were gone in an instant. But an old gypsy came to the door asking for food, and my mother listened. And I'm here, sitting beside you, so that I can share this with you, and that there are those moments that we feel so saddened. But I want you to know, every year, I go back to Poland, to this little village, with the wreath. And it has all my childhood friends' names on them. And a park dedicated to their memory. And as I was sharing this with the African audience, a young man had a question for me. And he said, "You shared about the Nazis going in, and you shared about the old woman. But how can there be forgiveness? How can there, if there's no justice, how can there be forgiveness?" And I said, that is a really valid question. And the answer to that question is that there is that within us that can arise triumphant and victorious when the human condition doesn't want to do it. In Corrie Van Boon's, her book, The Hiding Place, which was a fabulous film as well, she talks about being in a concentration camp, having an SS guard rape and kill her sister in front of her. And she said it was a vision that I never forgot at 16 years old. Because we were hiding the Jews. And we were discovered. And we were Christians. And we were discovered. We too were sent to concentration camps. She said, and I became a minister. It's always so wonderful to become a minister and to be in love and light when everything's going right. And one day, in Amsterdam, at my ministry, in my church, a man said, that was such a good sermon. I got so much out of it. And I looked up, and it was the SS guard who raped and murdered my sister. How was I ever going to extend my hand? I was frozen. This was the man that I had hated. Love mine enemies? Oh, please, dear God. And she said she just sat, she stood there frozen, and she could not extend her hand. And then she called upon the power of Jesus Christ in her Christian way. And suddenly her hand came up, and she extended it. And she said, yes, the power of forgiveness is an amazing thing. And shook his hand. I didn't shake his hand. I myself can do nothing. I didn't want to shake his hand. But there was a Christ presence within me. There was an energy greater than I was. It was transcendent. It transcended that experience, because what is the physical? It's fleeting. And yet we hold on to the physical. We love the physical because it's representative of what we know on the human level. And so it's so very difficult to let go of the physical expression, but the energy, anyone that we've ever loved, we go within, we feel their presence. I loved it in one of the films. It was a City of Angels. And the fallen angel in bed is feeling a presence. And he says, I can't see you, but I know you're there. There's a lot of things that we can't see, but we know it's there. We can't see love, and yet we express it to all of our loved ones. We can't see the energies of harmony, but they come forth in our body temple, and we have energy. I got up Saturday morning, and I knew that I was totally 100% at myself from the 9-hour time change and all of that 2 days of travel. I felt at myself. We feel energy, and everything is energy. Remember that Nikola Tesla said, if you want to know the secret of life, think in terms of energy, vibration, and frequency, not personalities, because we get our feelings hurt about personalities. And we hear stuff people say about us, and we know that we're a good person. We just can't figure out why they have that experience of us, but everyone brings their own past with them to the altar of life and project. So if we are healed and come from a healed space, then we have a very positive experience, no matter what is experienced. That there is something within us greater than we are, and we can use it. And just as Jesus stood at the foot of the tomb of Lazarus and said, come forth, he spoke to the life force within him, and that energy rose triumphant and victorious. I love the Sunday school story where the teacher said, now, what did Jesus say at the foot of Lazarus' tomb? One little Tommy just raised his hand. He was so excited because he knew the answer. He said, Tommy, what did Jesus say? And he said, Lazarus, come out with your hands up. I love it. So sometimes we just got to come out with our hands up and say, I of myself can do nothing, but there is a power in the universe greater than I am. And I can use it. I can tap into it at any moment. And those moments that I'm feeling sad and I'm feeling oppressed, or I'm feeling lack, limitation, scarcity, and all the stuff that goes on with everything else on the planet, I can tap into a power greater than I am that says, it's the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. That kingdom is here and now beyond time and space. It's where two people can sit down and they can mastermind for a spiritual center. That every bill is paid, every commitment is fulfilled, and that night have someone wire $5,000 because on some electromagnetic energy, that need went out and it was fulfilled. So as we come together on the second Sunday of Advent and move into this energy of Christmas, we are Christmas. We are the message, as Gandhi said, my life is my message. Every day and every way, we come forth in a greater way. We come forth with that recognition that we are going somewhere. And I absolutely know where we're going. Where are we going? Higher yet. Where are we going?
Higher yet.
We are going higher yet. I can feel it. I accept it. And I say, thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it is. And I love you.